Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into the life and, well, the truly seismic legacy of Paul Daniel, Ace Frehley, founding lead guitarist of Kiss. Following his passing at 74, we've got sources covering, not just the music and the spectacle, but also the incredible financial side of the rock brand he helped build.
Yeah, it's a profound loss for rock and roll, definitely. I mean, you look at the family statement describing the magnitude as epic proportions and beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
That phrasing really tells you something, doesn't it? Fraley wasn't just like in the band, he was the spaceman.
Yeah.
And that identity, that persona, it's just woven into pop culture now. It's really important we understand how that character got built and ultimately how it was valued.
Right. And that's the mission for you today.
Mm.
We want to go beyond just, remembering the hits. We need to look at the core things that made Frehley, as Stanley and Simmons put it, an essential and irreplaceable rock soldier.
Mhm.
And also figure out how a self-taught guitarist from the Bronx ended up creating this incredibly valuable global intellectual property, a brand valued recently at, what, £250 million? Just staggering.
Absolutely. When you look at Kiss, you're not just seeing a band, you're witnessing the birth of theatrical rock as, frankly, an arena business model. It really is the template. And Ace Frehley, the spaceman, he was a totally non-negotiable part of that original design.
Okay, so let's start right there, at the foundations. Kiss formed in 1973, and the genius, right away, was creating these four characters.
Ugh.
Instantly recognizable, highly marketable. You had Paul Stanley the Star Child, Gene Simmons the Demon, Peter Criss as the Catman, and Frehley as the Spaceman.
Hmm. And the sources really emphasized this wasn't just like putting on makeup, it was armor, a uniform. And crucially, it was a trademarkable design, the whole theatrical thing.
Yeah.
The iconic black and white face paint, those huge platform boots, the black leather glitter everywhere. It was built for spectacle. This is what we mean by theatrical rock. It's not just loud music, it's integrating pyro, big stage props, a whole visual world.
And Frehley's Spaceman, it added this specific kind of sci-fi angle to it all. The visual stuff he brought was amazing.
Hmm.
Like, he often played a guitar that actually shot out smoke during his solos, gave his character this alien, almost, I don't know, mechanical feel. That was a huge part of their live show.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
when we talk about intellectual property, the IP in this context, we're not just talking about the songs, right? We're talking about the trademark specific look of the makeup, those exact silver lines for the spaceman's mask, the shape of the boots, even the mechanism for the smoking guitar. Frehley was absolutely integral in defining what those foundational visual assets were.
And that kind of genius, it often doesn't come from, formal training, does it? We have this amazing biographical detail that really defines him. Frehley was born, raised in the Bronx, got his first guitar at 13, and just dove headfirst into music. Actually left high school to pursue it.
Right. And his quote sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? I'm a high school dropout, but here I am a millionaire, and I never even took a guitar lesson in my life. I mean, that's the definition of raw talent and, street smarts just overriding formal training. That pure, unrefined energy, that's what drove those early massive hits like Rock and Roll All Night and God of Thunder. That raw edge was the spaceman's fuel, initially.
So, okay, we have the creation story, the original four personas that launched this whole franchise.
Yeah.
But the history of Kiss, it's complex. The sources show it's also a story of, well, shifting faces and structural compromises.
It absolutely is. And this is where that tension starts,
Yeah.
between the individual artist and the huge machine they built.
Yeah. Frehley was a founder in 73, but he actually quit the group in 1982. The band didn't stop, obviously. They kept going with different musicians filling the roles. Then you get one of the biggest reunion tours ever in 96. The original lineup gets back together. Frehley stays until 2002. But it's telling, isn't it, that even after he left again, the original members, Frehley, Stanley, Simmons, Crissing, they were the ones inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014.
That Hall of Fame induction definitely confirms the industry sees the original four as, like, the canonical Kiss. But hang on, this is where I'd kind of push back on the sources a bit. Stanley and Simmons called him irreplaceable, right? But doesn't the history show the band did replace him pretty successfully for almost 40 years on and off? Doesn't that kind of suggest that the brand itself, the spaceman persona, was the irreplaceable asset, maybe more than the individual playing the part?
That's a really great point. It forces you to look at that contradiction.
Yeah.
The spaceman character felt unique, totally Frehley's, yet the role could apparently be filled. And this leads us straight to the band's most famous structural change, which happened right around Frehley's first departure, the big unmasking in 1983.
Right. And that pivot, it was a direct response to what was happening in the industry. It was the MTV era. 80s rock was all about big hair and, well, trying to look authentic, not theatrical masks. Kiss clearly felt pressure to take off the makeup, appear as just guys hoping to stay relevant. They basically tried to downplay the IP.
And what was the result?
Well, the music did okay commercially for a while. They had a bit of a resurgence. But ultimately, the sources show that the unmasked era just proved a crucial point. The band's real superpower was the IP, the characters. They eventually figured out the theatrical personas were their unique selling point. That's why they had to remask in the late 90s for that reunion tour. They knew they needed the Spaceman and the demon faces back to really connect with their core audience.
And that superpower absolutely drove sales. We know that by 2024, the band had sold, an astounding 100 million records globally. That success really lays the groundwork for what happened next. This monumental shift from just being a rock band to becoming a massive corporate asset.
Exactly. This is where the story moves from pure rock history into the business of IP valuation. And honestly, it gets really interesting here because the numbers are just huge. Just this year, the core Kiss business entity made one of the biggest music rights deals of the decade.
Okay, tell us specifically what was sold and to whom. Because this is critical for our deep dive.
So the band sold its entire recorded music catalog, the publishing rights, the full brand name, all the likenesses, and the intellectual property, the whole IP package. They sold it to a Stockholm-based company called Pop House Entertainment. And the figure floating around for this deal is thought to be upwards of $300 million. That's roughly £250 million sterling. That's just a staggering valuation. It confirms the massive, enduring commercial power of those 4 original personas, including the Spaceman.
What's fascinating, too, is who bought it. Pop House Entertainment. They aren't just a record label, are they? They specialize in digital entertainment experiences.
Precisely. This connects directly to the whole ABBA Voyage success story. Pop House is the creative engine behind that digital avatar concert series for ABBA. So that $300 million didn't just buy the old songs. It bought the raw material, essentially, to digitize the Spaceman, the Star Child, the Demon, and the Catman. This purchase means the characters can now evolve, perform, generate revenue, totally independently of the original human artists.
Wow. And that consequence was historic for the band itself, wasn't it? The sale marked Kiss's official retirement from live performances. Stanley and Simmons basically cashed in the IP, hung up the platform boots for good, and are trusting these avatars to carry the legacy forward.
But here's where you see that final, really fascinating contrast between the brand machine and the individual artist. While the Kiss touring act retired, Ace Frehley himself took a totally different path. He kept going as a solo artist, operating outside that huge corporate structure, released 8 solo albums, kept playing that pure classic rock he loved, holding on to that raw energy.
Yeah, he kept that spirit alive right up until very recently, when he unfortunately faced some serious health issues.
Yeah, sadly so. Back in September of this year, he had a fall in his studio, ended up hospitalized. And although his team sounded positive at first, medical problems quickly forced him to cancel the rest of his tour dates. The statement cited ongoing medical issues. That pure rock energy, unfortunately, finally had to yield to the physical toll.
And it was shortly after those cancellations that the really devastating news of his passing came. So we close this section, remembering that statement from his original bandmates, emphasizing Frehley's indelible role in the band's foundational chapters. Ace Frehley is survived by his wife, Jeanette, and his daughter, Monique.
His legacy isn't just in the hit songs, the ones he wrote or played on. It's in the actual template he helped create, the prototype of the modern theatrical rock soldier.
So why does all this history matter to you, listening today? Well, we've seen how a high school dropout from the Bronx helped dream up one of the most commercially valuable IPs in music history. We've tracked that internal tension between the raw rock artist and the highly structured corporate brand.
Yeah, what really stands out is that essential tension you just mentioned. The original unpolished energy of the Spaceman was absolutely necessary to launch the brand. But that same sort of unruliness maybe made him, at times, incompatible with the highly controlled corporate machine. He was like the chaotic engine that started the machine, but maybe he ultimately preferred the freedom of the solo highway,
Which brings us right to our final provocative thought to leave you with. Since that massive $300 million sale to Pop House included the band's entire likeness and intellectual property specifically to create digital avatars, What does it truly mean for the future of entertainment when a specific beloved persona, a character like the Spaceman, can now be digitized, projected onto a stage, and effectively outlive the original human artist who first embodied and created that character? A pretty deep philosophical question we're only just starting to grapple with as these digital assets take center stage.